A woman's true power does not come from appearances or the passing trends of the world. It emerges from the depth of her being, from the habits she cultivates daily, and from the silent strength with which she carries herself. Maturity is not merely the passing of years. It is the art of integrating wisdom with grace, self-awareness with authenticity, and power with compassion. To become truly irresistible is not to attract admiration alone. It is to embody a presence so complete that others feel both safe and awakened in your company. This is not about seeking approval, but about living in such alignment with yourself that your very presence becomes magnetic. Let us look at 6 daily habits that make a mature woman truly irresistible. There comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes that bending herself to fit the expectations of others is no longer an act of love. It is an act of self-betrayal. For years, she may have said yes when her heart was crying no. She may have softened her voice so it would not sound too loud, withheld her opinions so they would not sound too strong, or given her energy away so she would not be seen as too selfish. But maturity teaches her that there is nothing noble in erasing herself for the comfort of others. A woman who respects herself has learned that her worth is not measured by how much she sacrifices to be accepted, but by how much she dares to live in alignment with her truth. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not pride dressed in fine words. It is the quiet recognition that one's dignity is sacred, and that to abandon it is to wound the soul. A mature woman has walked through the pain of pleasing others at her own expense. She knows the bitterness of being praised outwardly while feeling hollow inwardly. She has discovered that the applause of the world cannot soothe the ache of self-abandonment. So she makes a new choice. She decides to honor herself, even when it is inconvenient, even when it costs her approval, and even when others cannot understand. This choice transforms her presence. She no longer speaks with hesitation, but with clarity. She no longer hides her boundaries, but protects them as one protects a home from being invaded. She knows that every time she says yes to something untrue to her, she is saying no to her own spirit, and she refuses to live that way. People may call her difficult or selfish or proud, but those judgments no longer have power over her. For she has seen what it costs to live for the opinions of others, and she has chosen freedom instead. This freedom makes her radiant. There is something irresistibly magnetic about a woman who does not shrink to be liked. Her very presence teaches others how to treat her. She does not demand respect with loud words. She earns it with the way she carries herself, the way she refuses to compromise her values, and the way she chooses authenticity over approval. It is not always easy to choose self-respect. Sometimes it means walking away from relationships that drain her spirit. Sometimes it means standing alone rather than blending into the crowd. Sometimes it means being misunderstood, criticized, or even rejected. But she has grown wise enough to understand that rejection from others is far less painful than rejection of oneself. The world may not always reward integrity, but the soul always does. Over time, this habit becomes her strength. Each day she wakes up and asks herself not, "What will make them like me?" but, "What will keep me true to myself?" She no longer shapes her life around the fragile approval of others, but around the solid foundation of her own values. She understands that love without respect is hollow, and that peace without truth is only an illusion. So she lives with the courage to disappoint others when necessary, knowing that betraying herself would be the greater loss. And here lies the secret: when a woman chooses self-respect over pleasing others, she does not become less loved. She becomes more deeply admired. For people may be charmed by those who bend easily, but they are transformed by those who stand firm. Her authenticity awakens authenticity in others. Her courage gives permission for others to be courageous, and her refusal to be diminished creates a space where honesty, depth, and real connection can finally exist. This is why she becomes irresistible, not because she tries to be, but because she has stopped trying altogether. She no longer performs, she simply is, and in being fully herself, she becomes unforgettable. A mature woman understands that peace is not something the world gives freely. It is something she must choose, protect, and cultivate within herself every single day. Life, with all its noise and demands, will always try to scatter her attention and unsettle her spirit. The world will invite her into endless arguments, pull her into chaos, and tempt her to surrender her serenity for the sake of urgency or drama. But she has learned that nothing she gains from the outside is worth the loss of her inner stillness. So, she builds her peace as one tends to a sacred garden, deliberately, patiently, and with unwavering care. This inner peace is not the absence of challenges, nor is it the denial of pain. It is the quiet strength that remains when storms rage around her. She knows that life will always bring both beauty and struggle, light and shadow, beginnings and endings. What makes her irresistible is not that she avoids difficulty, but that she meets it with a calm heart. She does not let temporary winds uproot her spirit. Instead, she anchors herself in something deeper, something unshakable. To cultivate peace, she has learned the discipline of withdrawal. When the noise of the world becomes overwhelming, she is not afraid to step back. She takes time for solitude, not as an escape but as a return, to herself, to her breath, to her soul. In that stillness, she regains perspective. She reminds herself that not every battle deserves her energy, not every voice deserves her attention, and not every opinion deserves her response. Her silence becomes her power, for she knows that peace is often preserved by choosing not to engage in what diminishes her spirit. People are drawn to her because her presence feels different. In a restless world, she moves with steadiness. In a loud crowd, she speaks with clarity. In a room filled with tension, her very being is a calming force. Others cannot always explain why they feel lighter around her, but they do. Her peace is contagious, and it awakens in others the desire to slow down, to breathe, to remember what truly matters. This serenity does not come without effort. She has battled her own inner storms. She has known the noise of anxiety, the heaviness of grief, and the chaos of doubt. But instead of running from these experiences, she has allowed them to teach her. She has sat with her pain until it revealed wisdom. She has listened to her fears until she discovered they were not stronger than her spirit. Through this process, she has become resilient. Her peace is not fragile, it is tested and proven. Every day, she practices the small rituals that nourish her soul. She gives herself permission to rest when she is weary, to breathe when life feels heavy, and to create moments of beauty even in ordinary days. She does not wait for life to slow down in order to feel at ease. She slows herself down, even if only for a few minutes, to reconnect with her center. This is her daily act of defiance against a world that glorifies constant business. She chooses presence over distraction, calmness over chaos, and depth over superficial noise. And because she guards her peace, she also guards her circle. She does not allow everyone access to her spirit. She has learned to distinguish between those who nourish her and those who drain her. She surrounds herself with people who honor her calm, not those who constantly disrupt it. This is not because she lacks compassion, but because she knows her energy is sacred. Protecting her peace allows her to give love more fully, not less. In time, her inner peace becomes her beauty. It is not painted on her face or stitched into her clothes. It radiates from within her. It shows in the way she listens without judgment, the way she carries herself without fear, and the way she chooses patience when the world expects her to break. She is irresistible because she embodies what so many long for but cannot find, a sanctuary in human form. Her peace is her power. It is the invisible crown she wears, the quiet light that guides her, and the unshakable truth that no storm, no voice, and no circumstance can take away. A mature woman does not run from herself. She does not hide behind masks of perfection or bury the parts of her soul that feel too heavy to face. She has lived long enough to know that denying the shadow within her does not make it disappear. It only gives it power in silence. And so, instead of rejecting her flaws, her fears, and her mistakes, she turns toward them with courage. She understands that to embrace her shadow is not to glorify her darkness, but to integrate it, to learn from it, and to weave it into the wholeness of who she truly is. The world often teaches women to shine only with their best qualities, to show confidence but never vulnerability, to display strength but never weakness, to present only the parts that will be admired and celebrated. But a woman who embraces both her shadow and her light refuses to live a half life. She knows that her scars tell as much of her story as her victories, that her struggles have carved depth into her soul, and that her mistakes have shaped her wisdom. To deny these truths would be to deny her very humanity. In her shadow live her insecurities, her anger, her grief, and her fears. For years, she may have tried to suppress them, believing that strength meant silence. But maturity has taught her that shadows grow darker when ignored, and so she chooses a different path. She brings them into awareness. She sits with them. She asks, "What are you trying to teach me?" In doing so, she discovers that even her flaws hold lessons, even her pain has meaning, and even her brokenness can become a source of compassion. Her light, too, is something she embraces. She does not downplay her brilliance to make others comfortable. She does not shrink from her talents, her wisdom, or her beauty out of fear of being called arrogant. She recognizes that her light is not a threat to others, it is an offering. To shine unapologetically is not pride, it is honesty. She knows that hiding her gifts serves no one, and so she carries them boldly, yet humbly, using them not to elevate her ego, but to uplift the world around her. The irresistible quality of such a woman is her wholeness. She is not fragmented. She is not pretending to be something she is not. When she laughs, it is genuine. When she cries, it is authentic. When she stands strong, it is because she has faced her moments of weakness and survived them. People are drawn to her not because she is flawless, but because she is real. She mirrors back to others the truth that being human is both messy and magnificent, and that embracing both sides is the path to freedom. Her relationships are transformed by this integration. She does not demand perfection from those she loves, for she does not demand it from herself. She offers grace because she knows what it means to fall. She offers patience because she has needed it too. And yet, she also inspires others to rise, because her own example shows that facing one's shadows leads to greater strength, not weakness. This daily act of embracing both her shadow and light requires courage. There are days when her insecurities whisper loudly, when her doubts try to pull her back, when old wounds ache with memory. But instead of fighting these parts, she allows them space without letting them rule her. She chooses integration over denial, awareness over repression, and growth over fear. Through this process, she becomes whole, and wholeness is magnetic. A woman who accepts herself fully, who does not fracture herself into good and bad, who does not hide the depth of her soul to meet shallow expectations. She carries a rare beauty. Her presence says to others, "You too can be all that you are and still be worthy of love." In a world obsessed with surfaces, she embodies depth. In a world that worships perfection, she embodies truth. By embracing both her shadow and her light, she becomes luminous. Not because she is flawless, but because she is whole. And it is this wholeness, this honesty, that makes her truly irresistible. A mature woman understands that words are not cheap, even though the world throws them carelessly into every corner of life. She has seen how words can heal or harm, uplift or destroy, awaken truth or bury it deeper. Because of this, she chooses to use her voice with reverence. She does not waste her speech on trivial gossip or empty noise, for she knows her words carry weight. When she speaks, she does so with intention, clarity and meaning, And this is part of what makes her irresistible. Her maturity has taught her that silence is not weakness. She is not afraid to pause, to reflect, to listen before she responds. She does not feel the need to fill every moment with chatter, for she knows that wisdom often speaks loudest in stillness. This restraint gives her voice power. When she finally does choose to speak, people lean in to hear her, because they know her words are not random. They are chosen with care. She has walked through times when her voice was silenced, ignored, or dismissed. She knows what it feels like to speak without being heard, and she has felt the sting of being misunderstood. Yet she has also learned that her voice matters most when it rings true to herself. She no longer speaks to convince everyone, nor to earn their approval, but to honor her truth. Her speech is not shaped by the demand to be liked, but by the commitment to be authentic. And so her words carry a depth that cannot be manufactured. When she speaks of love, it is not from shallow fantasy, but from lived experience, the kind of love that requires patience, forgiveness, and courage. When she speaks of pain, it is not from theory but from wounds she has tended to with her own hands. When she speaks of dreams, it is not as empty wishes, but as visions she has walked toward with determination. People listen because they can feel her words are alive, rooted in the soil of truth. Her intention is also her power. She does not speak simply to impress or to be admired. She speaks to connect, to inspire, to awaken something real in others. She has no interest in arguments that drain energy or debates that exist only to prove superiority. Instead, she seeks conversations that bring light, that foster understanding, and that plant seeds of growth. She knows that words are energy, and she is careful to use hers in ways that build rather than destroy. Her voice is not always loud, but it is steady. It does not dominate, but it resonates. She understands the strength of gentleness and the authority of honesty. Even in conflict, she chooses words that are firm without being cruel, honest without being cutting. Her intention is never to wound, but to clarify, to express, and to stand in her truth. This balance makes her powerful, because she shows that strength does not require harshness and clarity does not require cruelty. In a world that often drowns in endless noise, her way of speaking feels like a rare gift. People are drawn to her because her words leave an imprint. They linger in the mind long after they are spoken. A simple sentence from her can feel like a mirror that reveals something hidden, or a light that illuminates a forgotten path. She does not just speak, she awakens. But perhaps the most irresistible part of her speech is that it is aligned with her actions. She does not say one thing and live another. Her words are not masks, they are reflections of her inner reality. Because of this, others trust her. They know she means what she says, and that her promises are not empty. Her consistency makes her voice credible. Her integrity makes her words unforgettable. A mature woman who speaks with depth and intention carries a presence that few can ignore. She is not performing, she is not posturing, and she is not trying to impress. She is simply expressing truth, her truth, in a way that resonates universally. And that is why she becomes unforgettable. Her words do not just pass through the air, they plant themselves in the soul. This is what makes her irresistible, not the volume of her voice, but the sincerity of it. Not the number of words she speaks, but the depth they carry. She reminds us all that words are sacred, that speech can be healing, and that when we choose to speak with intention, we do not just communicate, we transform. True strength is not the loudest voice in the room, nor is it the ability to dominate others through force or fear. True strength is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. A mature woman understands this. She does not measure her power by how much she can control or conquer, but by how gracefully she can stand tall without hardening her heart. She embodies the rare balance of resilience and compassion, and it is this union that makes her presence irresistible. She has walked through enough trials to know that life demands strength. There have been seasons where she had no choice, but but to stand firm, to carry more than she thought possible, and to endure storms that threatened to break her. But she also learned something deeper along the way, that strength without grace becomes harshness, and grace without strength becomes fragility. It is only when the two are woven together that true power is born. Her strength is not brittle, it bends without breaking. She knows that being unshakable does not mean being unfeeling. She allows herself to grieve, to rest, and to be vulnerable. But she never lets those moments define her. Her grace gives her the courage to remain soft in a world that often demands hardness. She does not armor herself with bitterness, even when betrayed. She does not respond to cruelty with cruelty, even when wounded. Instead, she rises with dignity, showing that real strength is not about defeating others, but about not being defeated by life itself. This balance of grace and strength changes the way she moves through the world. In her relationships, she does not cling or control. She offers love freely, but does not lose herself in the process. She sets boundaries firmly, yet with kindness. She speaks her truth without silencing the truths of others. Her power lies not in demanding respect, but in commanding it naturally. Through the way she carries herself, the way she treats others, and the way she never abandons her own integrity. Her strength is visible in her independence, but her grace is visible in her compassion. She does not need others to validate her worth, yet she values deeply the presence of those she loves. She does not confuse strength with isolation. She knows that part of being strong is being able to admit when she needs help, and part of being graceful is being able to accept it without shame. This humility only deepens her power, for it shows that she does not hide behind pride, but embraces authenticity. In moments of conflict, she becomes a mirror of this union. Where others might react with anger, she responds with measured clarity. Where others might escalate, she de-escalates with her calm. And yet, her grace does not make her passive. If something threatens her peace, her dignity, or her values, she stands her ground with unshakable resolve. Her strength ensures she will not be trampled, and her grace ensures she will not trample others. This is why she is so magnetic. She proves that it is possible to be both firm and kind, both powerful and gentle. Her life itself is a testimony to the beauty of this balance. She has endured losses, heartbreaks, and disappointments, yet she carries no bitterness in her smile. She has faced betrayal, yet she has not allowed it to poison her faith in love. She has met obstacles that could have hardened her, yet she remains open to new beginnings. Every scar has taught her something vital. That strength keeps her standing, but grace keeps her shining. Others are drawn to her not simply because she is resilient, but because she is resilient without losing tenderness. She reminds people that strength does not require cruelty, and grace does not require weakness. She is proof that you can be unyielding and soft, fierce and kind, powerful and compassionate all at once. This is the beauty of a mature woman who practices grace in strength. She does not choose between the two, she embodies both, and in doing so, she becomes unforgettable. Her presence carries a quiet authority that does not need to announce itself, because it can be felt. She is irresistible, because she shows the world that true power does not come from domination. It comes from the union of courage and compassion, from the rare and radiant balance of strength held in grace. A mature woman no longer wastes her life measuring her worth against the lives of others. She has discovered that comparison is a thief. It steals joy, peace, and identity. She has walked through seasons of looking outward, watching others succeed, love, or shine, and in those moments she may have doubted herself. But maturity has taught her a powerful truth. Her path is her own, and no one else can walk it for her. To compare is to diminish the uniqueness of her journey, but to live with purpose is to rise into the fullness of who she was meant to be. Her purpose is not a single achievement or a fixed destination. It is the daily alignment of her actions with her deepest values. She knows that purpose cannot be borrowed from another person's story, nor can it be measured by society's fleeting standards of beauty, success, or perfection. Instead, purpose grows from within. It is the quiet certainty that she is living true to herself, even when others do not understand. And because of this, she no longer spends her energy competing, envying, or proving. She simply lives, fully and intentionally, on her own terms. When she wakes in the morning, her question is not, "Who is ahead of me?" but "What step can I take today that honors my soul?" This shift in focus changes everything. Comparison breeds restlessness, but purpose breeds peace. Comparison divides, but purpose unites her with her own heart. Comparison makes her feel either inferior or superior, but purpose reminds her that she is incomparable. She does not need to be better than anyone. She needs only to be whole within herself. Her refusal to compare does not mean she ignores others. On the contrary, it allows her to celebrate them more freely. She can admire another woman's beauty without questioning her own, applaud someone else's success without feeling diminished, and witness another's joy without bitterness. Her self-worth is rooted too deeply to be shaken by what others achieve. This is what makes her radiant, her ability to celebrate life, both hers and others, without jealousy. Living with purpose also gives her clarity in times of difficulty. She is not easily swayed by trends, opinions, or pressures, because she knows where she stands. When the world tells her she must look a certain way, act a certain way, or achieve a certain list of milestones to be valuable, she does not bend to the noise. She measures her life not by external checklists, but by internal alignment. Her compass is her heart, her vision, and her calling. And when she follows it, she feels alive in a way comparison could never give her. Her relationships are transformed by this way of living. She does not seek partners, friends, or companions to fill an emptiness within her, because she already feels complete. She does not enter relationships from a place of competition, constantly weighing who gives more or who holds more power. Instead, she approaches love and friendship with openness and generosity. Her purpose fills her so completely that she does not need to cling, she chooses. This freedom is magnetic. People are drawn to her because they sense she is not playing games of comparison or competition. She is simply present, genuine, and intentional. The beauty of living with purpose is that it gives her resilience. Comparison leaves a woman exhausted, always chasing, always doubting. But purpose roots her deeply, so that when life shakes her, she remains steady. She knows why she is here, and she knows what she stands for. This clarity allows her to endure storms without losing direction. Others look at her and wonder where her strength comes from, but it is simple. She no longer wastes her power measuring her life against others. All her energy is invested in walking her own true path. And this is why she becomes irresistible. She does not strive for approval, yet she commands respect. She does not chase recognition, yet her authenticity shines so brightly that people notice her anyway. She is magnetic not because she tries to outshine anyone else, but because she has learned the rare art of shining as herself. A mature woman who lives with purpose, not comparison, embodies freedom. She is free from envy, free from insecurity, and free from the endless race of proving her worth. She walks in alignment, in integrity, and in quiet power, and in doing so, she becomes unforgettable, living proof that the most beautiful life is not the one that competes, but the one that is lived with true purpose. A woman who chooses self-respect over pleasing others, who cultivates inner peace, who embraces both her shadow and her light, who speaks with depth and intention, who practices grace in strength, and who lives with purpose rather than comparison, becomes more than simply admired. She becomes unforgettable. Her power is not in perfection, but in wholeness. Her irresistibility is not in chasing approval, but in embodying authenticity. She does not live for the applause of the world. She lives in alignment with her truth, and that truth radiates in everything she does. Such a woman teaches us that real beauty is not a mask we wear, but the light and courage we carry within. She reminds us that strength is not in hardness, but in grace. She shows us that peace is not found in the noise of the world, but in the stillness of the soul. And most of all, she demonstrates that life becomes magnetic when we stop comparing, stop performing, and begin living with intention. The irresistible woman is not rare because she is flawless. She is rare because she is whole. And in her wholeness, she becomes a mirror for us all, reflecting the truth that each of us carries the same potential to live with depth, with dignity, and with a purpose that outshines every shadow. That is the path of true maturity, and it is the path that transforms a woman into a presence the world cannot ignore.